We are live. We are live. We are live. We are live. All right. If you can see this, you can see this. Help me out. Let me know what city are you in? What city are you in? We getting the show started. We are live right now. This is Shift the New World. It's your first time tuning in. We do this every single Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Got a great guest today, Shalita Shante. Glad to see you here. Glad to see you here. All right, cool. Today we got a great show for you. And this is when business meets politics. If you tune in regularly, then you'll notice that I'm missing my co-host for the evening. He actually had a prior engagement today. But with no further ado, the show still goes on. He'll probably check in at the very end and give us some good comedy for the day as well. If you can do me a huge favor, do me a huge favor. I need all the energy I can possibly get. But come in and let me know what city are you in. If you're watching this, I see there's a few people already watching. We got a couple watch parties going. Let me know what city are you in. What city are you in? And while I'm waiting on you to tell me what city you are in, make sure you hit the share button. The share button. We want as many people to be able to see this as possible. We have a real phenomenal show for you today. We have someone who is well versed in the art form of business, as well as has decided to help out the city of the city of Tallahassee, Florida. I don't know how I'm gonna do this without my co-host, man. It's just not the same without him. We got Hillsborough Beach in the building. Y'all know where that's at. That's in South Florida. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, cool. Let us know. Anybody else watching this, let me know what city that you are in. Make sure you hit the share button. Hit the share button, people. Hit the share button. But we have a good show for you today. We actually get to talk to somebody who has decided to step out there into the land of politics, even though he is a successful business owner. So we really want to be able to get inside his head and hear directly from the man who wants to be the representation of a community. So this would be a great opportunity, especially for anybody that's in Leon County. We got Zach Jackson once again. You in Jacksonville this week, brother? Now you in Jacksonville. You were in I don't know where you were the other day. You were in Alabama the week before that. You was in like California the week before that one. But anyway, glad to see you again today, Zach Jackson, checking in from Jacksonville, Florida. All right, anybody else, make sure you go ahead. Let us know what city you are in. We got people all over the place. We're broadcasting for 5 locations at the same time. If you can see this, make sure you let us know exactly what city you are in. Please hit the share button as well. All right, I'm trying to be a jack of all trades today. Darren Jackson, I see you watching. I see you watching this, Darren. How do I mute this? I'm so sorry. All right, cool. I see Darren. What's going on? Let us know what city are you in, brother. Let me see. We have Trenton Flowers from Webb City, Missouri. We got Keisha Washington from Tallahassee. How you doing? We glad you stopped by and checked in with us. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, you all over the place, man. Yeah, we get it, Zach. All right, look, now this is what we're going to do. We're going to chime in. We're going to bring on our guests. We're going to get straight to it and bring our guest out today. Right, is Mr. Scott Flowers, who's actually residing in Tallahassee. But what we're going to do is find out a little bit more about Mr. Flowers, as well as what made him decide to get into the political realm. Maybe even get a little bit more insight with his plans, his vision, his goal, his mission for the great city of Tallahassee, North Florida, that is. All right, cool. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring Mr. Scott D. Flowers to the stage. How are you doing, Mr. Flowers? There we go. All right, got you unmuted. How's it going?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you took up the call. This is interesting. I'm gonna tell you, Scott, I don't know Scott personally. What made me interested, one was a great friend of mine. It was also just so happened to be one of our first featured guests. He actually, Luther Lee out of Tallahassee, somebody that we're real close to. He has a lot of great things to say about you. So I was, yeah. So I was, and Luther Lee doesn't have great things to say about everybody.
Not about everybody. He's always got things to say, not always great things.
Yeah. So I mean, but it's truthful. So if Luther vouched for you and said, "Hey, this is a stand-up guy here," I definitely wanted to be able to know more about you myself and share with the people that actually kind of, I wouldn't say so much follow us, but people that we can touch and connect with. We get a pretty good amount of traffic every week, so I wanted to be able to open up that floor, so when people do go to the ballot box and they see your name, at least they had an opportunity, at least from this standpoint of this platform, to be able to know a little bit more about you. At the same time, I want to make sure, I did a show a couple weeks ago called "I'm 38 and I've never voted." And it's true. I'm 38 years old. It's turned 38 in May. I'm getting old, getting up there, Yeah. Yeah, you don't get no younger, huh? So I'm 38 years old, and I've never voted a day before in my life. And when I tell people that, sometimes it catches people a little off guard, but there's reasons behind it. I became a convicted felon at 19 years old. So I actually didn't have my rights to vote, but I found a little loophole that allowed for me to be able to make that happen. Jay Bird from Tallahassee, what's going on? Glad you stopped in. Yeah, I do that from time to time. It's my ADHD that kicks in, Scott.
I'm glad to see Jay Bird on there, and people from Tallahassee and Missouri both, because I got people in both places. So I'm glad they're tuning in to see us. That's great. So, are you planning to vote this year? I didn't get to see that broadcast. How did that go?
Yeah. I had it was a friend of ours, Booker T. Gaynor. That's the former mayor of Cairo. He came on, and with him, he's running for a state representative office. And with him, he actually was able to, I guess, give the other side. There's a lot of people that's going to be voting for the first time this year.
Yes.
And I'm going to be a first timer. This will be my first year actually voting. And to be honest with you, I don't really know too much about politics, period. I know quite a few politicians, but I never really invested in learning exactly how everything works, or how I can use it to my benefit. But this now I'm very interested, because now I have an opportunity to do it. So I want to be well informed, and I know there's other people that want to be very well informed as well. It's like a mystery,
It's a great mission. I mean, I would hate to guess at a percentage, but there's a high percentage of voters who just kind of show up and wing it. They're not informed. Yeah. They go to the ballot box and they pick some names that look familiar. They pick some names that, maybe they've got 2 or 3 races that they're passionate about. And then they just kind of, sometimes they make picks based on party lines. Sometimes they make picks based on a name that they recognize. But as far as making it a mission to get informed and make a vote that's really going to count, not enough people do that. I haven't always done it up until the last, maybe the last 2 or 3 elections. I was an informed voter. Before that, I was somebody that just showed up at the polls. So I think it's terrific. You've decided to get informed, to make it a mission, and share it with other people at the same time. Man, I hope we said there's going to be a lot of first time voters this year. And I think you're right. And I think a lot of them are passionate and motivated. This may be the first time in a long time that we've had a very informed voter base that are making decisions that are going to change things for the better.
Yeah, definitely. Now let me ask you this, because I'm very interested. One thing that I actually noticed too, that your wife, because you're not originally from Tallahassee, but your wife, she went to Lincoln High School.
Yeah, that's right. She's a born and bred Tallahassee girl. She grew up here her entire life. I've been here almost 20 years, but she's been here her whole life.
Yeah. So, she's a Trojan. I'm actually a former Trojan myself,
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, they got rid of me though. They gave me the boot when I was 16, but that's another. They did it very hospitably, so I'm still a Trojan at heart. I can't complain at all. So that was an interesting factor myself that I saw. Now, the other part is that you're a business owner, entrepreneur.
Yes.
So, how did you actually get started in that, I guess that lane?
Well, the easy answer is my dad was always a business owner. I grew up around an entrepreneur, and I grew up around, some small business people, him and other family members. Kyle Del Vecchio just said Trojan pride. He's a fellow Trojan, I guess.
It goes deep, man.
It does. So, but I haven't always been an entrepreneur. I straight out of high school, I passed up some scholarship opportunities to go to college. college and decided to open a business just like my dad did. I opened a little Sinclair gas station, and being 18 and not being fully focused on running the business, it didn't go so well, and found myself looking for a job just a few months later. So then I worked for a while. I worked in the corporate world. I got married pretty young. I moved around as a manager for Walmart. I moved up in that organization and got to move around some, and then moved to Florida, not to Tallahassee originally, but when I came to Florida, I came here as a real estate agent, and got into some commercial real estate down in Destin that I was helping people with, and using my business background and my corporate management background, I was trying to help people. And then when I finally landed in Tallahassee, I ended up getting divorced from my first wife that we got married young. And then, a couple of years later is when I met Amanda that I'm married to now. But when we had kids, I went to work for the state. I was looking for that, that healthcare and that stability and everything. In years to make sure I had everything in place I needed to have to take care of my kids. And now that they're in middle school, it was time to get back into business again. And that's what I've always been passionate about and good at. And so I was doing some consulting on the side. I was helping small businesses all in and out, all along through there. I was, I had a lot of experience with business, so I was helping people on the side, and that kind of became a sideline business to where I was doing business coaching, business consulting. I went and got certified by John Maxwell as a leadership coach, and then I started getting involved with some nonprofits. That was kind of an accident. It was just friends to friends. I was helping them out in their businesses and really seeing all of the great works that the nonprofits in our community do. And that's what led me back to this type of public service, to wanting to get into politics and say, I've got a lot of skills from a lot of different experiences and a lot of different backgrounds. And I believe that I won't ever be a politician, but I think my skills will help the political world. I think I can do some good for the community by bringing something into the county commission that isn't politics. I don't want to be a politician. Yeah. I want to be a businessman who helps the community and who helps the businesses in the community and the people along the way. So that's really kind of how I ended up here. So I do run 3 businesses currently. We've got a uniform store, we've got an ice cream store, and we've got the consulting business where we still coach clients and help them run their businesses efficiently. So I'm running 3 businesses while I'm running for county commission at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like you got a lot on your plate.
It's a lot, but I've got a lot of great help. I'm at the uniform store right now. My main office is here, and this is my campaign headquarters. And we've got people that are trained well and committed and passionate, and they help run these businesses. And so I get to kind of pull back and be a coach for them as well. So the same way I coach other businesses, I kind of can fill that same role here in my own businesses, because we're lucky to have some really good help and some really good staff that takes care of things.
Yeah, and you really kind of hit the nail on the head for the question I was going to ask you. Like with politics, what actually made you interested? You answered that, and what is it that you'll bring to the table? Now you're running for commissioner at large, right?
Yes, that's right.
What's the difference? Because I don't really understand that. What's the difference between because I know you have it sectioned up to where you have like 1, 2, 3. And then you get at large. What is at large? What does that mean?
So at large means countywide. There's 2 of these positions, and they alternate election years. So Nick Maddox is in the other at large position. He's not up for re-election this time. His will be 2 years from now. Marianne Lindley is occupying this seat right now, but she's retiring. And this is anybody in Leon County can vote for this position. The other seats within the county commission have districts. So, I'm in the district of Christian Dozier. Whenever I vote for my district, it's the seat that Christian Dozier sits in now. But this seat that I'm running for, anybody in Leon County, so anybody in any of the districts will have a choice and a voice in electing this position. So it's got some challenges. It's got pros and cons to that. If I was in my district, I feel pretty confident that I could go and knock on every door and meet every person and, be at all of the community events. Probably would be a little easier to reach people one-on-one. But by being countywide, it kind of helps because I know people through business that aren't in my district, and I know people from the nonprofits that I've worked with that don't live in my district. So this way, anybody in the county that I've made connections with that has worked with me in the past, that can kind of, vouch for me and for working together and for why they believe in me. So there's pros that way. It's a little bit more difficult to run this way because you got to reach a lot more people. But I think I think it helps. I think it's good because of the connections I have in the community.
Yeah, definitely. Now with that, with the commissioner's position, like with that position, what are the things that you will really be deciding? Like what's the role of the commissioner, or especially the commissioner at large?
That is a great question. The at large and the district commissioners pretty much all carry the same role. There is a chair that's elected by the commission, but the something that happens a lot right now, and I was actually just discussing this before I came onto your show with a couple of other people, is we have a city commission, we have a county commission, we've got a school board, we've got state agencies, we've got a lot of different entities, and a lot of times there's some passing the buck that goes along. So it's a great question that you ask, what is the county's commission's role? Because a lot of people don't know what the role is. Sometimes they request things that really belongs to the city, or they request things that really belongs to the school board or whatever. So the county, the recent mask mandate, they ran that through the county commission. They made it countywide. That was something that that fell under them. The Leon County Sheriff's Office, the sheriff is an elected position, but they work close with the county commission, whereas Tallahassee Police Department works close with the city commission and the city manager. So in a lot of ways, the county is responsible for the rural areas outside of the city of Tallahassee, because the city has its own city commission, but in some other ways they overlap each other. So parks and recreation, EMS services fall under the county. The fire department does not. It falls under the city. So it kind of overlaps because there's some volunteer fire departments out in the county that borrow resources from the city. So there's some overlap there. Building codes and building permits, there's some overlap there. So we've got a kind of an odd situation here between the city and the county, where the majority of our population lives in the city of Tallahassee, which is also inside the county, and then you've got everybody who's outside the city. So that's a pretty good question. That's I guess in some ways difficult to answer and understand. But I think a big part of coming into this role is going to be collaboration with the city and collaboration with those other entities. They really need to work together more often. We saw recently with the Wulani project, where the county commission kind of made a U-turn and decided to have a hearing on something without informing the city first. And so they weren't prepared. They kind of reversed course on something, and it caused some chaos. So I think a big part of this role is going to be creating that collaboration between the city and the county and all of the entities there.
Definitely. Yeah. Man, why don't they teach this stuff in school?
Good question.
they teach all this stuff about the president, the House, the Senate, and that's about it. And then I fell asleep on the other part, so I don't know if they taught how far they went, but I know for a fact that they did not dive into this. And to be honest with you, I'm really finding it that the local government is probably more necessary and powerful. Like it impacts you directly.
I agree completely.
Why don't they teach this stuff in school? At least give me the opportunity to fall asleep on it. You know what I'm
saying? Right. There was all kinds of things you fell asleep for, but this was something that would have been more useful.
Yeah, and definitely
a lot. I think local politics, I hear this all the time, but it's because I'm involved in local politics. But really, where things get done are local politics. The national stage it gets all the attention, it gets all the national news, it gets all the focus. People show up to the polls when there's a presidential election. So every 4 years, they show up in mass to vote. But during those off years, during the primary elections, this is one of those races that could be decided in August. It may not even go to November. If somebody gets the majority of the votes, 50% plus one on August 18th here in Leon County, then this race will be over. It won't even go to November. And people don't understand that sometimes. So they don't show up to vote during the primary. They don't realize that they've got a big voice during that primary, and that some of the races will be settled. So they wait to November, and then they look for your name, and they say, hey, your name wasn't on the ballot. Where was it? Where were you? And I say, oh, that race ended in August. No, nobody showed up to vote. So you're right. It needs to be taught. People need to understand how these things work, or they get left out.
Yeah. And I mean, can that be something that is coordinated on the local level instead of waiting for the president or the House or the Senate to try to put it into the educational system?
I mean, there's a lot of things that can be run through the school board and run through the superintendent, but really, I think stuff like that, it can be move through our other educational sources, right? So outside of the traditional school, I think we've got a lot of clubs, we've got a lot of after school programs, we've got a lot of ways to reach youth and let them know what's important. And we talk about teaching financial responsibility in schools, and that's a good place for it. Life skills in schools, that's a good place for it. But we can teach it outside of schools also. You can do it with the Boys and Girls Club here. One of the things I did early on that really moved me to get involved in politics was I volunteered for a lock-in with Luther Lee at the Palmer Monroe Teen Center.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm very familiar with them. Yeah.
You're familiar with that? Yeah. So that night they're spending the night with 12 to 17-year-olds. I think there was a couple, maybe even 9 or 10, 11-year-olds there. So, 10 to 17-year-olds was really eye-opening for me at the types of questions that they had, the types of mentorship they were looking for, the types of things they wanted to discuss. They're really like broad opinions on things and the way that they could verbalize their opinions. And I thought, wow, these kids have a lot to bring to the table that the schools aren't addressing. And, in some cases the parents aren't addressing, and they don't really have an outlet for that. And that was really one of the things early on that moved me to get into politics, was how much that we can do to reach our youth. I'm a business mentor, but I wasn't a youth mentor up until that night, whenever, I got invited out. And I thought, so the teaching civics, teaching community involvement, teaching entrepreneurship, teaching fiscal responsibility, we can do those things outside of school as well. So I would hope eventually it gets addressed in the school system, but if it doesn't, I think we can address it, in a dozen other ways, and it will really change our community as a whole if we put a focus on that.
Yeah. Now I'm glad you mentioned those points. And even like with Palmer Monroe Teen Center, I was actually around and involved when they were first structuring the whole entire, the program. Before they opened up the doors, I was involved with it a little bit with the previous director, the first director. And I was actually in Thomasville working a few programs with the Boys and Girls Club, Thomasville City Schools at that time. So like really, my background is really in community, I guess you say community development, but coming from the youth. I always work with young people and their families. So now I'm in total agreement with everything that you just said. And let me go ahead and let me see. We got Mark Flowers of Conyers, Georgia. Thank you for tuning in. We got Toby in Tallahassee. Thanks for being here. We also have Mrs. Amanda Flowers from Tallahassee. Definitely, we greatly appreciate you.
She's checking up and make sure I don't say anything stupid on here.
You don't say anything stupid. This is one thing about this platform, and I just express that to everybody. When we created this platform, we wanted to be able to have something that was pure, very transparent, to where we interact with a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life, viewpoints, whatever. What we want to do is kind of be able to put out there, the raw, pure, and uncut. So with us, hey, we're not gonna think that you say anything stupid. However,
you're not gonna edit this afterwards. You can go back and make things sound better. It's just raw. Huh?
I don't have time, man. Yeah, I don't have we don't have a big enough budget to go back and edit things out.
Yeah, me either. A couple of questions popped up over here on my end, Coach Jay. Do you mind if I answer them real quick?
Yeah, please do. Because normally, I told you, I got my co-host. He normally is the one that checks up on me with all that. So if you see something, please go ahead and drop it out there for us.
I had Mike Goldstein. He runs a small business here in Tallahassee called Capital City Pedicabs, and then he's also an expert networker and introducing people to each other and supporting small local business. And he asked me, how will I separate my businesses from my county commission duties if I'm elected? And that's a good question, because I am a busy guy, and at times right now with campaigning, it has come up as well. And before I started this and went into this, I met with Jeremy Matlow, who sits on the city commission, and he runs a couple of he owns Gain Street Pies, and I think he's got 2 other locations. So I sat down with him and I asked him that same question. How do you separate your duties? How do you make sure? And he said kind of what I said earlier. He said he had a wonderful staff that took care of things. And before he ever decided to take the plunge, he met with his staff and he made sure they were up to the task and understood what his undertaking was going to be and how he was going to have to kind of step away. So I did the same thing. I met with my staff here, and I've got my mom and my dad are retired, but they also participate in these businesses. So between the managers and the family, we've got some good support for that. So that's a great question that Mike asked. I wanted to make sure I addressed it because it was a concern of mine as well. And if I didn't think I could accomplish it, or if I thought the businesses might suffer, or if I thought I couldn't commit to the commission, then I never would have taken on this extra task. So that's a good question from Mike. And then Mark and Conyers asked how I would reach out to the schools to insert some of this stuff into the curriculum. And the answer to that, unfortunately, is I don't know, other than being the voice. There's no direct influence there from the county commission onto the school system. There's nothing we could mandate. There's nothing we could bring to a vote or present to the public. But what we can do is be a voice for those concerns and collaborate with the school system, collaborate with the city commission, collaborate with the after school programs and the tutorial programs and all the private businesses that are here in town. So we can listen to the needs and to the concerns of the public, and then we can be the voice for them, because once you're on that commission, you have a platform, and I would use that platform to try to communicate those needs and create some collaboration and work groups between the people who might have more influence in that area. And I think it was last year, it may have been 2 years ago, Governor DeSantis signed a bill that did include some fiscal responsibility education for all Florida schools. I don't know if that's been implemented or if it's about to be implemented this year. I think they're going to shoot for the middle school curriculum to start talking about some of that and educating the kids. So some of that's already in the works, which I'm glad it is.
Yeah, I'm down here in Broward County, and we actually attended. Broward County is the 6th largest school district in the country. And that's the interesting part. Wow. With Florida actually has, out of 10 school districts, the 10 top largest school, I'm trying to say it right, the 10 top largest school districts in the country, 5 of them come from the state of Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know it. But we were actually at something that they have every year with the Broward County schools, and they introduced the what the changes were. One part was very heavily on financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Implementing that in the school system. So now I think that's a great thing. I just hope that it is really nailed in on the local level to make sure that it's done the proper way.
Something I think I've mentioned this in some other campaign events. I think once that is a part of the education system, it has to be supported at home. And to support it at home, the same information that's given to those students needs to be given to the parents. That's something the county commission can do. We can create a platform for that. We could work together with, TCC, Lively Tech, Leon County School System. We could create some adult education classes that have that same curriculum that the students are learning and make it available to the parents for free. Make it available, through web pages, through videos, through a website, but also in-person classes that could be sponsored by. We've got such a big educational community here in Tallahassee with FAMU, with TCC, with FSU, with Lively and Kaiser, and we've got a lot of educational entities here in Tallahassee. So not to mention all the private ones that tutor and do after-school programs and stuff. So I think a big part of supporting that financial literacy is making it available to the parents with, and it may be from a different perspective. You're going to teach it different to the parents than you do for the kids. But if we teach it to a kid in 7th or 8th grade and they don't get reinforcement at home, by the time they graduate high school, maybe we've helped a little bit. Maybe we've kept them out of burdening credit card debt, or maybe we've taught them the dangers of student loans. But if they don't get some reinforcement at home, I don't think we've done everything we can do. So making that education available to the adults as well as the kids, I think, is really important.
Yeah, definitely. I'm truly in agreement with you. Now I'm going to hit you with the tough questions. Now, you ready?
I'm ready.
2020, man, will be a year to be remembered for a long time. It started out great for me. I was like, hey, this is my year. This is my year. Then March 15th hit, man, and it was like, what in the world just happened, right?
Yeah.
So there are two really major issues that are at the core, the real forefront in this country, and especially in our communities, and specifically in Tallahassee. It's right at the core of it. And that is, of course, we're dealing with the pandemic issue. We're dealing with COVID-19. And this thing, I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been trying to kind of give my perspective, because it was a little bit different down here in Broward County.
It still is right now. I think you're right in the mix of it again, I guess, aren't you?
Well, kind of, sort of. It's never changed for us, to be honest with you. Okay. So it's we kind of adapted to it in a certain type of way, and we've been adapting to it a little bit longer, but now you're starting to see a lot of cases rise in North Florida. So North Florida is just now beginning to experience what we've been experiencing down here since March. So you got the COVID situation that is really, it's very interesting. I hate to be a politician right now, to be honest with you.
Right? We didn't foresee this when we decided to run this time.
So we got the COVID. On top of that, we have the racial issue that has been brought to the forefront as well. So these are two major issues that are right in the forefront of everything. I think it's on the top of mostly everyone's priority list. So with that being said, are there any ideas or visions that you already have to start tackling some of these issues once you are put in the office? Or is there anything that you specifically see that you can help out by being in that seat, being in that position, to help address some of those issues?
Yes, I don't want to monopolize your show. I could talk about this for the next 3 hours here. I don't think.
Well, you good to go. I probably just kind of tune out a little bit, man.
Yeah.
I'll
get a drink and come back and see if I'm still here. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to kind of address them in the order you brought them up, but I want to talk a lot about what I foresaw doing prior to all of this happening, and now, honestly, the things that are going on are historic. Things are going to change this year forever. There's things that are happening in 2020 that are never going to go back to the way they were before. And in a lot of ways, I think that's a great thing. I think the virus and the people getting sick and unfortunately the people who are dying, that is of course tragic. And I feel for those people. But it has forced us as a community to address some things that maybe we've been putting off for too long. We've embraced technology. I mean, look at how you and I are talking here and on this forum. We're in two different cities, and we've got people from all over the country who are tuning in. So a lot of offices are doing this. A lot of people are telecommuting now. Whenever the technology was always there, but people weren't comfortable with it until they were forced, and now they're comfortable with it. So that's going to change in a lot of ways. I think office space and commercial real estate and the way people work and the way people commute, those things are going to change. And I think they're going to change for the better. I think they've been forced into a situation that might have been uncomfortable, but I think it's going to help us move on to a better way of doing business. So, with things that are happening with the protests and police reform and Black Lives Matter and that kind of thing, it's been out there forever. I mean, the civil rights movement was almost 50 years ago now. We should be beyond this by now. These things should have been addressed, and they haven't been. And so with what's happening this year, it's forcing our hand, it's forcing the communities to take action, it's forcing the police forces to look at how they police, it's forcing the mayors and the governors and the citizens action committees and the review boards, it's forcing everybody to take another look at things. And I feel for the people who've had businesses that were damaged, and the riots and some of the violence are an unfortunate side effect of this, but the protests are so important and they're doing so much good, and we don't want to lose that energy. We want to continue that. I hope that the rest of 2020 goes in the same direction. I hope we don't lose that energy, because I see a lot of good being done right now, and I don't want to see that taken off track or derailed in any kind of way. I want to see it continue, because it's overdue. It's long overdue. I was talking about police reform 5 years ago. I mean, police violence has been a problem. Now it's not the same kind of big problem that we see on TV or on YouTube. I mean, there are so many good interactions with police officers. The amount of bad interactions is a small percentage of overall, but the fact that it's not addressed, and the fact that they get away with it, and the fact that the grand juries and the prosecutors fail to bring charges sometimes, and so the fact that it wasn't being addressed was an issue that I'm glad it's in the forefront. I'm glad it's in the spotlight and it's getting fixed this time, finally and permanently, hopefully. Seeing some of these officers fired, seeing them charged with crimes, I think that is a huge improvement that we've never seen in previous years. So this year's got a lot of energy, man. This year has so many things happening, and I think we're scared. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable. A lot of people are afraid. A lot of things are changing faster than we can handle. But if we can manage it, if we can maintain it, if we can continue it and not take our foot off the gas, I think it's going to change our nation, permanently. I think it's going to change things and change history. And 2020 will be a year people are talking about 50 and 100 years from now. It's going to be a year that's never forgotten. And in a lot of ways, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm a big fan of problem solving, and you can't solve any problem if you have not first identified the actual root cause of the problem. You can't get down and you can't keep putting band-aids on gunshot wounds and thinking that you're going to be all right. So for me, it's an ugly and a sad truth. I'm fully in agreement with what you're saying, to be honest with you. Now here's another point, because I was having a talk with a good friend of mine, Terrence Barber.
I love Terrence.
Working Class Wednesdays.
Yep.
Yeah, me and Terrence go back.
That's good.
And one thing that he pointed out was that small businesses, he's the champion of small business. And we have kind of the same ideology of when it comes to what small businesses mean to local communities. The way that we look at it is that small businesses are actually the lifeblood of towns, like cities. Absolutely. They're the lifeblood, but we see a lot of favoritism that's shown towards corporations as opposed to local businesses.
Yes.
And throughout this whole situation, especially with the pandemic, with this situation, the number one business wise, we've seen a lot of small businesses suffer more than corporations have. He brought a fact to me in Leon County. In Leon County alone, he personally knows over 35. These are all minority owned businesses that had to close down their doors because they couldn't make it through. So what are with you being a businessman, do you see is there any thoughts that you have with being able to I guess really help small businesses get to a place to where they're able to kind of just hang on and ride this thing out however long they need to, and as well as getting small businesses to a place to where they become just as important as the corporations in Tallahassee?
Yeah, that's really three questions there. Number one is we're in the middle of this thing now, and so helping the small businesses that are already struggling or have already had to close their doors at this point is really difficult. We're going to depend on probably state and national grants and bailout money like the PPP money and the EIDL money, SBA loans. But the problem that you and Terrence touched on is that for the really small businesses, for the small entrepreneurs, that help isn't always available. It's really focused on the big businesses. It's easier to go get a $2 million SBA loan than it is to go get a $25,000 loan to keep your small business running. There's not a lot of help for the smallest of the businesses. And that's the lifeblood of the community. All these little small businesses are the ones who really give our community an identity. They're the ones that give people jobs. They're the ones that put money back into the community rather than sending it out of state to a corporate office, or sometimes even offshore to a corporate office that's, all the way outside the country. So the small businesses, they're not doing that. Their money is respent over and over within our community, and they've got to be protected. But the problem is that to help them, to educate them, to prepare for something like this, which nobody was prepared for. Even the biggest businesses weren't prepared for something like this. We've got international manufacturers that we buy from for our business that weren't prepared. I mean, nobody could have prepared for what's happening right now. But the problem is, we're so far into this thing that the people who are hurting, I don't know that there is help available for them at this point, unless it comes from the federal level. And even then, there are, strings attached to that. There's going to be a long-term debt that's going to be repaid. I mean, we're mortgaging our futures right now to borrow money to survive during this crisis that's going on. So, I was teasing my kids the other day about that. I said, they were watching the news and they were talking about one of the stimulus packages is about to be passed. And I asked them, I said, you realize they're borrowing that money from you, right? And the kid said, what do you mean? I said, we're telling you that's your money we're borrowing to keep things going today. So when you grow up, you better pay it back. That's the thing that I don't think, it's necessary. I don't see a way around it, but it's a problem. We're creating a bubble. We're creating a bigger problem on top of the one we already have. So, that's a tough question to answer is how do you help those small people, but those small businesses, the small business people. But I think the good news of that is at least there's a spotlight on it. It's kind of like everything else going on in 2020. Like, we realized at this point that the small businesses can't survive. They can't get the loans. There's going to be, I guarantee after this all happens, there's going to be some micro loan companies that pop up. There's going to be some people that say, we need $5,000 grants. We need $10,000 grants. We don't need $200,000 grants. We've got plenty of that. We don't have enough of the $5,000 grants, $10,000 grants, and we don't have enough counselors at the county level. I was on a forum earlier today with the other 5 candidates, and of course, everybody says we got to create jobs. Everybody says we got to create opportunities. But I asked them, how do you do that? How have you done that in the past? I've done it. I've helped businesses. I've started businesses. I've created a manufacturing business at one point. So we've created those jobs. But what we find a lot is that there's no help for them. Somebody mentioned something that claims to be a business incubator here in Tallahassee earlier. I won't say the name. I don't want to call them out, but they're really not a business incubator. They're really a place that people go to hang out and sip coffee and pat each other on the back. It's not, there's no help there. I went there. I'm a business person, and I went there, and I wasn't able to get any help with at the time for the business that I was putting in touch with him. It's not a true business incubator. So from the county commission standpoint, we can create resources. We've got a budget. We've got staff. We've got experts. So the county commission could create grant writers. They can create a website of resources. They can ask the nonprofit organizations and the mentors and the people out there that have the knowledge, the experts in their fields. They can contribute, and they can say, hey, if you need to know how to get a $10,000 grant to keep your business running during a hard time, we've got a person that can help you with that, or we can put you in touch with a person that can help you with that. So I think the role of government should always be a facilitator and a leadership. I don't think it needs to recreate the wheel over and over again. There's something right now that's going on. I'm going to write about it tomorrow. Children's Health Services. It's well-intentioned, just like the business incubator was well-intentioned, but it doesn't serve the purpose that it's supposed to serve. Like, everybody knows that children should have adequate access to healthcare, but creating a committee and creating a tax and just throwing money at a problem isn't a solution to the problem. There's already at least 6 different entities here in Leon County alone, some local, some state, some private through the hospitals, that provide free healthcare for children. So rather than go create a new council and create a new tax and move wealth from, the working people to these committees and these big organizations, instead of doing that, it's really a matter of saying, hey, here's the 6 resources that already exist. Let's help. If somebody needs help, call the county. We'll put you in touch with the people that can help you. So the resources are out there. Our community is amazing. We have over 2,000 nonprofit organizations registered in Leon County. They have a $3.5 billion fiscal impact. The healthcare services alone is, I think, gosh, I forgot the number. I had it. Oh, hang on here. I've got it right here. The number was, maybe I don't have it. But
it's big, right? I'm sure it's more money than what I got in my bank account, right?
Yeah. Hey, the money that exists now for the children's health care is bigger than the money for the Tallahassee Police Department, bigger than the budget for the Leon County Sheriff's Office, bigger than the budget for the fire department. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of resources. The problem is putting the people in need in touch with the resources, and the government should serve that role. The government should facilitate that connection. That's really what I see government doing. I'm a Democrat, but I am a small government libertarian style Democrat. I think the government should be as small as possible, and the government should serve a leadership role and a facilitator role, and it should let small businesses solve the problems. It should let nonprofits solve the problems. It just needs to be a resource to them. As a business coach, that's what I am. I don't go in and tell somebody how to run their business. I don't know how to go and run a t-shirt factory. I don't know how to go and run a trucking company. I don't know how to go and run a convenience store. What I do is I go into their business and I make myself a resource. What are your questions? What are the challenges you face? What are the problems? What are your employees telling you that the solutions are? We can do the same thing at the county level. We can talk to the community and we can say, what are the challenges? And we can talk to the community and we can say, what are the resources? And then we can put people together, the right people in the right places, and we can let the problems solve themselves. We've just got to facilitate that and stop getting in the way.
Yeah, you really speaking my language, Scott. I'm telling you, man. You speaking my language. I mean, you're touching on everything I believe in, and it's really from I'm a grassroots guy. Even the community work, all the community work that I did, a lot of the programs and events that were created, I had a major issue with touching federal dollars. Like I never personally went and got a grant, never, but I worked with an organization that already has the grant. You bring your funds and my organization comes in as a consultant, that way we can use it the best way possible. But I love the idea of what you're saying is being able to connect those dots and keep it more organic. More of a grassroots feel. Because what I notice is that a lot of times when those resources drop into a community, especially in Tallahassee, I've seen it happen firsthand, money starts disappearing. And the people who are actually
you get a lot of fingers in the pot.
Like little fingers get in those pots, man. Yeah. A lot of fingers gets into the pot, and then on top of that, what was supposed to the problem that was supposed to be solved, it still exists, and it's almost like there was no impact made in the first place. I don't have a problem with people getting paid. If you're gonna solve the problem, then you deserve to get a piece. That's fine, man. But I keep seeing so much money drop into resources, but it's never actually touching the community and the problem areas that it's supposed to solve. So I think from a grassroots approach, just like with what you're saying, that makes practical sense, because now every effort that's supposed to be made will be made, because it's dependent on the people that need it. Yeah.
And there was a quote I heard a long time ago. I laughed about at the time, and now I throw it out every chance I get. But it's that none of us are smarter than all of us. So anybody that gets up and pretends to have all the answers I'm not going to trust them, because it takes a community effort. It takes a lot of inputs. It takes a lot of communication. It takes a lot of people, providing input, and a lot of people providing ideas. And then, that you have to act upon those. Some things work, some things don't work. You've got to keep the good and throw out the bad. And you've got to, constantly be evolving. But it takes a community effort. Anybody that, gets up in front of a crowd and says they've got all the answers, you should be wary of that. It's really going to take a community involvement. And it's like you said earlier, you said the Band-Aid on the gunshot wound. For how many years have people been raising money to solve the problems, but the problems aren't solved? How many committees have been appointed, and how many different laws have been passed, and how many different taxes have been passed, and how many different grants have been written? We're still facing the same problems we've been facing for 50 years. Like nothing has permanently changed, and the solutions are out there. It can. And 2020 is the year, man. 2020 is the year that things can change permanently. Like things can be fixed this year, because we've got everybody's attention. Everybody's aware. Everybody knows what's going on in 2020. You can't escape it. Nobody's hiding from the energy of this year. This is the time to make the change.
Yeah, it definitely. Something good, better, something great better come out of all this.
Yeah,
because if we go through all this right here, man, and all we do is end up in the same exact boat as how we went into it. There is a horrible condition going on there. Something ain't right about that picture. There's no way in the world that we can come out of this situation and still be in the same shape before we came in. This is like strength and conditioning training, man. Times 20. You know,
this is camp. This is two-a-days right now. We're right in the middle of two-a-days. We're waiting for the season.
Yeah, man, it's a serious business, definitely. So now we're looking into the future. So what's coming up next for you? You getting ready for a campaign, which would be the primaries in August.
August 18th. Yep. And don't forget, like, this race could be, there's 6 people in my race. So the top 2, if nobody gets a majority of votes, the top 2 make it to the November ballot. But there's other races in August that are going to be decided August 18th. It's really important that people get out and vote in that primary. My race, having so many people in it, it'll probably, the top 2 will advance to November. But there are a lot of people who are going to get their races decided August 18th. So if you want to have a say and you want to have an input in the local government, August is the time to do it. You got to get out and vote August 18th.
August 18th. And for anyone watching, that's for Leon County, right?
That's for Leon County, yep, and City of Tallahassee, yep.
And City of Tallahassee. So August 18th. So now would be a great time for everybody to start really doing their homework, doing the research, meeting the candidates, like how we're doing right now. And really doing your due diligence. So when the time comes, we put the right people in place. You know, and I believe that's really what it's all about.
And it's important. Don't vote. I'm not saying don't vote for the incumbents. There's some good incumbents out there, but I'm saying don't vote the way you've always voted. Get informed and make a change. This is the year to make a change. This is the year to know what the races are about and know how they influence your personal life, know how they influence the community, and make a vote that's going to count, that's going to make a permanent change for things. Don't take it lightly. This is an important year.
Yeah. And that sounds like that's the bottom line. Yeah, we normally end the show, you know, every time when we get to the end of the show, we normally do a thing called, and that's the bottom line, where we recap and hit them with the hood, line, and sinker. But I think you did that job for me, Scott. I greatly appreciate it.
Good.
You took a lot of pressure off, man. Cause I tell you, my co-host Keith, he brings so much energy to the table, you know, that he makes what I need to do easy, right? Yeah. But you know, I was a little nervous, man, about, hey, can we pull this thing off, you know, without my young gun being here? But you definitely brought great energy to the table, and we appreciate it. And matter of fact, I mean, with all that being said, this is what I got to do. What's going on? What's up? My co-host Keith McIntyre has arrived. Right.
I'm here.
No technical difficulties?
No technical difficulties. I hear everybody.
Scott, every single week, Keith always has something going on with his camera, mic, something, right? We always find a way around it. But Keith showed up just in time to be able to close us out. Like we said, if anybody wants to get in touch and ask more questions or find out more about you, Scott, what do they do?
There's a website, voteflowers.com. That's got a lot about me and my family, some photos, and I write a blog there. I try to do it at least once a week. It probably ought to do it more often with everything going on, but there's some good updated information there. But to really follow me on the Facebook page, Scott Flowers, candidate for Leon County Commission. Follow me on that, because there's daily updates on there. There's a calendar. You're going to know where I'm at, what I'm doing, and I'm accessible. I'm everywhere. You can come stop by G. Willie's Uniforms to see me if I'm here. You can see on the Facebook page where I'm going to be and catch me out somewhere. I'm always accessible. I mean, a big part of my campaign is accountability and transparency. If you got a question for me, come ask me, and you're going to get a straight answer. You may or may not like the answer, but you're going to get a straight answer from me, you know, at any given time. And you know, one thing that I really pride myself on, and the biggest compliment that I get from people every now and then, is when they tell me, Scott, you know, I don't always agree with you, but I always trust you. I always know you're going to tell it like it is. You're going to have an opinion. You're not going to shy away from things. You're not going to ride the fence. And that's really the best compliment I can get. You know, I know I'm not going to get 100% of the votes, and I know I'm not going to agree with everybody on every issue, but I'm going to do what's best for our community. I'm going to be accountable afterwards. I'm going to tell you why I did what I did. I'm going to tell you why I think the way that I think. And, you know, and I think afterwards we can still be friends, whether we agree or disagree. We'll still be friends because you know where I stand. So that's the way to get in touch with me is follow me on social media, check out the webpage, and then just come up and introduce yourself. Say, hey, Scott, I'm I'm here to talk about what you said yesterday.
Yeah. And you know, they say that they watch the show, they can get a discount on a uniform, right?
Yeah, you know what? How about this? We got the ice cream store next door. I got a couple of friends I've seen over here commenting. If you say you saw me on the shift broadcast, I'll buy you an ice cream cone. How about that?
Hey, he said,
look at there.
He said it. He definitely said it. All right. Well, it was definitely a pleasure having you on, Scott, man. And anything that we can do to help you out in your endeavors and what you have going, just let us know. You know, definitely seemed like a great stand-up guy, man. And that's what we're all about. You know, supporting people that have good intentions for our communities.
Yeah.
You know, all right, cool. So with no further ado, Keith, you ready to close us out?
Let's do it. So listen, if all our hearts and our minds are clear, until next week, the same day, the same time, the shift. Listen, this is Keith, Coach J. We out.
We'll see you next Tuesday.